Question 921. During the escrow period, a buyer and seller have a dispute and their property transaction fails to close. Both parties demand the earnest money from the broker acting as the escrow holder, who should A. Turn the earnest money over to the Bureau of Real Estate, B. Return the earnest money to the seller, C. Retain the earnest money during a cooling-off period, D. File an interpleader action. Correct answer is D. File an interpleader action. When a dispute arises between the buyer and seller regarding the earnest money, the escrow holder is in a difficult position. To protect themselves from liability, the best course of action is to file an interpleader action. This is a legal procedure where the escrow holder can ask the court to determine who is entitled to the funds. The court will then review the terms of the purchase agreement, any relevant laws, and any evidence presented by both parties to make a decision. This approach ensures that the escrow holder is not held responsible for the dispute and allows the court to resolve the matter fairly. Question 922. Listing broker Linus is requested by buyer Bruce to hold a deposit check for 60 days. The broker's best response would be to A. Inform the buyer that the check can only be held for a week, B. Decline the buyer's request, C. Accept the deposit and promise to hold the check, without informing the buyer, D. Accept the check, but inform the buyer that the seller will make the choice on whether to grant the requested hold. Correct answer is D. Accept the check, but inform the buyer that the seller will make the choice on whether to grant the requested hold. Brokers generally don't have the authority to unilaterally hold a buyer's deposit for an extended period. The decision to hold the deposit typically rests with the seller. It's crucial to have a clear understanding with the seller regarding the holding of the deposit. The broker should discuss the buyer's request with the seller and obtain their consent before accepting the deposit with the 60-day hold. By informing the buyer that the seller will ultimately decide on the hold period, the broker maintains transparency and avoids potential misunderstandings. Question 923. Which of these instruments must be recorded in the county recorder's office to be valid? A. Easement in gross, B. Commercial rental lease, C. Declaration of homestead, D. Land contract. Correct answer is C. Declaration of homestead. Although some states require that land contracts be recorded for validity, California does not. Easements and leases also do not need recording, but a declaration of homestead does. Declaration of homestead is recorded to protect a homeowner's primary residence from certain creditors, while other documents may be recorded for various reasons. The declaration of homestead is specifically designed to be recorded to provide legal protection to the homeowner. Key takeaway: recording documents with the county recorder's office provides constructive notice to the world about the rights and interests related to a property. Question 924. A contract obtained by a party committing a fraudulent act is A. Modifiable, B. Valid, C. Automatically cancelled, D. Voidable. Correct answer is D. Voidable. In the case of fraud, the innocent party has the right to choose to either 1. Void the contract. This means they can cancel the contract and be released from their obligations under it. 2. Ratify the contract. This means they can choose to uphold the contract despite the fraud. While fraud can lead to the cancellation of a contract, it's not automatically cancelled. The injured party has the right to choose whether to void the contract or not. When a contract is obtained through fraudulent means, the innocent party has the right to void the contract. This means they can choose to cancel the agreement and be released from their obligations under it. Question 925. A broker holding a non-exclusive listing for a sold property wishing to demonstrate she is entitled to a commission must show that she A. Held a broker's license at the time of the sale, B. Found a ready, willing and able purchaser for the property, C. Was the procuring cause of the sale. D. All of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. To be entitled to a commission on a non-exclusive listing, a broker must demonstrate the following. 1. The broker must be a licensed real estate professional at the time the sale is finalized. 2. The broker must have presented a qualified buyer who was ready, willing, and able to purchase the property on the seller's terms. 3. The broker's actions directly led to the successful sale of the property. This can be demonstrated through various means, such as showing the property to the buyer, negotiating with the buyer, or providing information that ultimately led to the sale. If the broker can demonstrate all these factors, they can claim their commission even though they may not have the exclusive right to sell the property. Question 926. Limited partnerships must include A. 4 limited partners for every one general partner. B. At least one general partner and one limited partner. C. A statement of purpose delivered to the Bureau of Real Estate. D. None of the above. Correct answer is B. At least one general partner and one limited partner. A limited partnership must include 1. At least one general partner. General partners have unlimited liability for the debts and obligations of the partnership. They also have full control over the management of the business. 2. At least one limited partner. Limited partners have limited liability, meaning their liability is generally limited to the amount of their investment in the partnership. They typically have limited involvement in the management of the business. Therefore, the core requirement for a limited partnership is the presence of both general and limited partners. Limited partnerships are the most common example of real estate syndicates, in which the syndicator sells interests in real estate to investors. Limited partners are passive investors. Question 927. The monthly net income of an investment property is $1,550. An investor is expecting a 13% rate of return. Using the capitalization appraisal approach, the value of the property is A. $135,748, B. $143,076, C. $176,455, D. $260,000. Correct answer is B. $143,076. 1. Calculate annual net income. Monthly net income, $1,550. Annual net income, $1,550 per month * 12 months per year equals $18,600. 2. Calculate property value. Capitalization rate, 13% or 0.13. Property value equals annual net income, capitalization rate, equals $18,600 divided by 0.13 equals $143,076. Therefore, the value of the property is $143,076. Key concepts. Capitalization rate. This represents the investor's required rate of return on their investment. In this case, the investor expects a 13% return on their investment in the property. Capitalization approach. This method of property valuation estimates the value of an income-producing property by dividing its net operating income by the capitalization rate. Disclaimer. This is a simplified calculation. In real-world scenarios, appraisers consider various factors such as market conditions, property condition, and risk assessments to determine a more accurate property value. Question 928. Which is not deducted from gross income when calculating net income to find a property's correct capitalization rate? A. Replacement cost. B. Property management costs. C. Interest on investment funds. D. Real estate taxes. Correct answer is C. Interest on investment funds. Net operating income, NOI, is calculated by subtracting all operating expenses from the property's potential gross income. Operating expenses include property taxes, property management costs, insurance, maintenance and repairs, utilities, if applicable. By deducting all operating expenses from gross income, you arrive at the net operating income, which is then used in the income capitalization approach to estimate the property's value. Interest on investment funds is not a direct operating expense of the property itself. It's a personal expense of the investor. When calculating net operating income, (NOI), for a property, we only consider expenses directly related to the operation and maintenance of the property. Question 929. A contract may be considered unenforceable by a court for any of the following reasons, except A. Its contents cannot be proven, B. It is voidable by the other party, C. It was signed by one spouse rather than both, D. The statute of limitations has expired for a lawsuit to enforce the contract. Correct answer is C. It was signed by one spouse rather than both. If the terms of the contract are unclear or ambiguous, it may be difficult to enforce. If a contract was entered into under duress, fraud, or misrepresentation, it may be voidable by the other party. Legal actions to enforce contracts have time limits. If the deadline for filing a lawsuit has passed, the contract may become unenforceable. In community property states, property acquired during marriage is generally considered community property, meaning it's owned by both spouses. However, one spouse can often enter into contracts related to their separate property without the other spouse's signature. Question 930. Which of the following is required to create a valid contract? A. Offer and acceptance. B. Consideration. C. Mutual consent. D. All of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. A valid contract requires a clear and unambiguous offer from one party and unequivocal acceptance of that offer by the other party. Consideration is something of value exchanged for the promise. It can be money, goods, services, or even a promise to refrain from doing something. Mutual consent, also known as meeting of the minds. This means that both parties to the contract must understand and agree to the terms of the agreement. Capacity to contract is the fourth required element. Writing is not mandatory for some contracts to be valid.